So this is the title of my talk. Currently, I am a Pew Fellow in Marine Conservation. That gives me some funding to do research for 3 years. As you can imagine, I'm very delighted because after I finished my PhD, I was a bit worried that when I return to Indonesia, will I be able to continue to do research, a good quality research, and hopefully with this, I would be able to do that. I'm also a research fellow at IPB University at the Faculty of Fisheries and Marine Science, where I did my bachelor degree. So this is the case in my study, is dynamite fishing. So as you can see here, this is me diving. I think this was probably 2004, 6 or something, on the field of rubble corals. It's completely dead, and this is within a national park in Bunaken in the North Sulawesi. So this is just a short introduction about like what dynamite fishing in Indonesia. Of course, you know, there's a lot of other threats or like pollution, developments, you know, and other things. But dynamite fishing has been like dynamite fishing and overfishing has been being said like to contribute to 95% of threats to Indonesia coral reef. So it's very widespread. It's mostly targeting remote empty islands. So this is a bit funny because sometimes scientists saying like, oh, let's go to this island. This is completely remote, no people living there, no one ever been there. And when they arrive there, it's completely dead, you know, like destroyed coral reefs. It's illegal, but it's still very widely happening, and the main problem is just destroy the 3D structures immediately and then create these shifting rubbles, making it difficult for coral larvae to settle and, you know, grow again and build the 3D reef. And so that's why active restoration is very famous, you know. It's basically installation of artificial reef to help create a stable substrate for coral babies to settle and grow. But unfortunately in Indonesia, a lot of these artificial reefs is a lot of restoration projects always saying like, oh, we want to increase the fish catch. So there's a kind of the confusion about like, do you want to do reef restoration or increase fish catchment, you know? So there's still about confusion about that, you know, because it's, of course, you can use different materials, you know, but because of this thing, this confusion, a lot of artificial reefs were not designed using a material that is environmentally friendly for corals, and or it's placed in a place that have never been reef before, or this resulting in unsuccessful restoration program. And this is just some photos I took from the internet, you know, like different restoration projects in Indonesia. And the next one is, it's like a discarded old tires, you know, being said as an artificial reef or reef restoration projects, you know. But this kind of materials, this kind of structure will just, you know, being another rubbish under the seafloor, on the seafloor. And another thing that we've seen quite a lot, this is actually the quite sad part. This is a projects by the government. And then they often hire a consultant, you know, inside consultant that has no knowledge about coral reef. They don't know how to do it. They only got, oh, I've been instructed to make these pyramid shapes from concrete, 40 kgs, this size, that's why I do, you know. And then they just place it everywhere. And as you see here, it's just they place it on top of a healthy corals, which is quite shocking. And as you can see, the bottom, the left one, it's placed in a place where it was immediately covered by barnacles, you know, who eats baby corals. And so there's no feasibility studies, there's no, you know, preliminary studies whether this place is good for restoration program or not, you know. And this is actually a paper published in 2008 on the local journals by a colleague of mine from the Diponegoro University. He was basically being paid by the government to actually rechecking, their restoration project. And here you can see on the top one, after 1 year of deployment, the corals in Sabang, the artificial reef completely destroyed, because they use very cheap materials, like it's unstructured, And again, the second row is showing photos from Central Java. Again, you see they were being placed on top of a healthy corals. And the last rows is from Sulawesi and from Bali, and they just basically, put this like a pipe, concrete pipes. And the very last picture show you this is a huge pipes, like probably a meter and a half. And after a while, they're completely buried by a sand or by under the rubble. It's just because it's too heavy. It's just like grinding down, So this kind of a lot of projects are not taking advice or previous findings, or us as a scientist, sometimes they never ask for advice, but this is quite a very sad part, but hopefully this presentation will end up with happy things, happy ending. So reef restoration. So like a lot of those projects are really one-off, basically they put something on the floor and that's it, bye, But there are some projects in Indonesia that involve the long-term monitoring projects. Usually these projects are very well designed. It's part of a scientific projects like a PhD program or NGOs, So this is just an example of like 4 different projects that I have been involved for almost 20 years now. So this is the projects in Bunaken National Park. This is using the eco-reefs. It's from ceramics. It's only like a meter wide and half a meter high. There's 620 in front of inside the national park in front of one of the islands. And the area coverage probably 75 times 16 meters square. And it's placed in a slope, so from 2 meters to 10 meters. Here you can see the difference, like the one at the top, depth, it's immediately covered by soft corals, as you can see in the photos, covered by soft corals. Then we have, the one in the middle, like a lot of life, a lot of different coral settles. And then we see the bottom on the middle, plating corals have been covered like 5 eco-reefs. This is what we want. I still remember when we placed this Acropora plating in the middle, and it's been growing wonderfully, But again, the one in the very last photos showing eco-reefs on the deeper depth is completely buried by rubbles. So from here we learn, and after after exchanging stories, also apparently never place anything on a slope for reef restoration when you have rubbles, a lot of rubbles. The next one, this is the big project by Helen Fox. I was involved also this is in Komodo National Park. We have 9 sites all over the island, all over the national park, 9 sites, and within each site there are 4 treatments, different shape, some like perpendicular, some is just a block, it's a huge project, this one. And then this is a photos 5 years after installment. As you can see in Papagarang, the very first pictures, the yellow arrow show rock piles. This is just basically volcanic rocks being piled on top of each other. So in Papagarang, you see it's very healthy, it's very good. And in Gili Lawa Darat, as if nothing happened, as if it was just being planted yesterday, And in Padar, gone, it's being buried by rubbles. And this, even like Helen has has published her work on the preliminary studies, where she concluded that rock piles is the best method to be deployed in Komodo National Park. But this is the tricky part about reef restoration. You know, it doesn't really matter how like you plan it, you do preliminary studies and this and that. Still, like the science is not like when you know like have monstera or whatever plants and on the like planting trees or planting flowers at the back of your house in the garden. You know, science on that has been quite developed, you know, what temperature, what kind of soils and things like that. But it's not the case with reef restoration or coral growing corals. And again, this is an example from Sumbawa. This is from a mining company. So I was a bit like, this project was planning to be included in my study, my future studies, but I'm still doubting it because it's from a mining company, you know, like I'm not sure if I can, if the result is saying something else, if I can still work on that. So so basically in Teluk Benete and Teluk Lawar is just nearby. You know, in Teluk Benete, there's never been corals before. It's soft sandy substrate, but the corals like growing really, really nice. And in Teluk Lawar, there were coral before, but it's just destroyed from dynamite fishing. And after 4 years, there's nothing. There's no corals growing on the reef balls. So with this project, I applied to basically rehabilitating reef rehabilitation. So how can we help to improve reef restoration practice in Indonesia? To improve reef restoration practice in Indonesia through scientific research by identifying, you know, environmental factors, restoration methods, location, for which restoration program most likely to be successful, you know, because there's a lot of money involved and a lot of interest also from the government on this project. So this is I have 4 objectives in my study. Basically, the first one is just quantifying threshold on the environmental condition of successful reef restoration. So there will be site that have a success, and we will study the environmental condition. And secondly is to large mapping of rubble field in Indonesia. Most of research on reef in Indonesia, it's never random. It's always very targeted. They always target a better reef in the area, you know. So how could we know? We know like, oh, there's a lot of reef, you know, damage in Indonesia, but no one ever say like how much, you know. So and then from those 2 results from the first 2 objectives, I would like to make the spatial prioritization for reef restoration. For the second one, I'll be collaborate with Chris Ruksema from UQ, and for the third objectives, I'll be working with Maria Berger from University of Leeds. And the fourth one is actually it's not the last one, but it's you know, encapsulated everything, but engaging stakeholders, disseminating results, even what I'm doing now is I already start by involving different stakeholders into this research. So this is the achievement from this project. Maybe not the achievement, but results, the first result. We published this just recently, last January, Coral Reef Restoration in Indonesia, Review on Policy and Projects. So we found there are like over 500 projects of reef restoration in Indonesia. This is by far the country with most restoration projects in the world. And then like only 5% of this has been captured by the global study by Lisa Enarsson, who is also the author in this paper. Why? It's because like the global study only do search on a search engine that cover English language. with this study, we use Google. We use Google, and it's because we understand, you know, in Indonesia, there's no hardly any official reports, hardly any publication. The most data I will talk about that next, but there's over 120 artificial reefs, 50,000 of coral transplantation, and almost 1 million fragments of corals have been planted in Indonesia. But you know, like these numbers, it doesn't mean success. You know, even for me, it's quite scary. You know, imagine you have 1 million fragments of corals, and each like 5 centimeters. You have like 5 million centimeters of corals. So the primary source of the records is over 40% is online news, because I knew for sure like what people want if they have this program is coverage. So the first person they invite is journalists, you know. So we try to dig from like online news. Yeah, and then like there's also a official website. There's only 30% from journals and 10% on reports. And the main organizer of this is like government. 40%, almost 40% is organized by the government. And then private sectors, 15%, you know, as their CSR program. And university, usually small scale. And this is just to show like the most favorite materials is concrete and steel. But from these, like on the graph number B, it's really good because the use of tire for artificial reefs has stopped. You know, like it's only on the 90s until the only in the 90s. The gray one here. Yeah, here the gray. The gray one. Yeah, tires. So, and then we try to understand how the policy, and this is quite shocking because like there's 17 laws and regulation talking about reef restoration in Indonesia, and some of them are even contradict one to another. But the blue one are the most relevant ones. So we basically have 3. And the red one is technical instruction, just recently published, and then it's only, I think last year in 2021, if you can see the purple one, that they start to say like everyone want to do reef restoration, they have to have a permit. So before there's no permit. The dangerous thing is because they're always saying like, oh, it's a good intention, you know, restoring reef, it's a good intention, you can do whatever you want, but that's really not the case, you know, because some projects they put old bus and, you know, old cars without cleaning them, you know. Okay, and so results number 2 is we managed to have this. It's a School of Coral Reef Restoration from IPB University. It's launched on December 6, 2021, and now we have 28 speakers with 2 international speakers sharing. This is really good because like we've seen like how many people are actually actually wanting to improve this, and they have the same concern with the practice that's been happening in Indonesia. So we map like where they are, you know, so they're basically all over Indonesia. So this is a very excellent way to get this agenda get going. You know, we have people from everywhere have the same concern. They try to do a very careful design of their project. They're sharing the success, the failure, and then I really enjoy this webinar series. So it's a webinar like every week we have 2 speakers. But we starting off ran out of speakers now. So our next movement is like we would really do advocacy on this. You know, we would like to talk to more with the government and engage more. And then the good thing, they start to reach out as well. you know, the government start to reach out and, you know, asking advice and everything. So hopefully this will be growing into some, like, you know, working group or advisory team that will actually eventually improve the practice in Indonesia. So so there's quite a lot of things going on, you know, but the next phase of my research will be basically going out to the fields where good restoration projects has been going on, and actually study what makes success, you know. And we identify these 6 sites that have welcomed us, and but I'm thinking now also to include the bad side as well, you know, like we will, like, these sites all very different characters, you know, it's different location, different methods, different environmental condition. So now I was looking at help or collaborate, you know, how better to actually proceed this, you know, like in terms of data analysis and in terms of research design. I'm talking to a lot of people. If anyone has, you know, ideas, or oh, you better do this, or you know, we have experience on this, on top of, you know, reading a lot of papers and how they do it. So these are the sites. Bear in mind, 6 sites. 6 sites. Within the sites, there are all 6 locations, and within each location there are a lot of sites. So I'm not 100% sure if I could achieve that everything, you know, but let's just plan big first, you know. And then so basically just Reef Benthic community, but again here we have a problem where there is no standardized method to monitor Reef Benthic community on the reef restoration site. As you can see before, you know, like they have different shapes, different size. We are still trying to find out what best to do on this. So we're looking at, you know, like the usual thing, percent cover, health status, you know, and then we are going to see water quality, and we want to see the robustity. So I've been thinking of working with Renata, Sonia, on this. And then a reef fish population. It's a reef fish population. It's probably the most straightforward one, yeah. But Reef Benthic community, we might have to figure it out how to standardize the method and everything. So this is the plan for this year. So hopefully start soon. And so this is important remarks just from the paper we published, you know, that high number does not necessarily indicate successful projects. The ultimate goal of restoration has to be the long-term survival and a self-sustaining functioning ecosystem. And costs of restoration have to include monitoring and data sharing. And restoration projects need to have a very clear, specified objectives and measurable targets. Otherwise, it's just, you know, will result in this in failed projects. International collaboration, you know, this is a we are all have the same challenge, or our reefs are threats globally. So this needs to be like international joint collaboration work. And recommendation, work closely with the Indonesian government. We are doing it now, and monitoring of a large number of large-scale reef restoration projects in Indonesia. That is a side thing that I would like to do, just visiting like some of the big projects and see how they're doing, and supporting existing projects for monitoring programs, and encourage local and global knowledge exchange and international supports and collaborations. And yep, thank you very much. That's all from me.